Okay, ladies and gentlemen, where I left off last time was I had just finished painting the iris, which is the color part of the eye. Now, I did the basic coloring of the eye. I also showed you how to use the blur tool to sort of soften the edges. One of the other things that I did is I really went in and added a lot of texture on the inside of the eye. Now, I was trying to emulate a little bit of the fibrous look of what you see inside this iris. Do you have to get all of that in? No, but I'm sure some of you do want to know how to do it, and that was how to do it. So if you got the basic layers and colors and things like that in there, that's great. If you didn't, that's what we were working towards. And if you really want to add some extra detail to it, feel free to do so. Again, that's not 100% required. I just wanted to kind of look like the eye, but you can feel free to push this as far as you'd like. So again, we worked on separate layers. I have the whites of the eye on one layer. I have the iris on another layer. I'm going to go ahead and create one more layer right now, creating a new layer, layer 1, and I'm going to name that one Pupil. And Pupil, I think we got to do like something Pupil paint, so you don't necessarily confuse this with the actual shape layer. And again, shape layers have that little square in the corner. As you can see where my mouse is right now, so that should keep that thing straight for you. I've got the pupil paint layer. So I've got this new layer, and now the pupil really is a fairly easy part. There's a black hole in the middle over there, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have black selected in my color picker. I'm going to go ahead and grab my brush. I got my brush, and I'm going to make sure I select that little circle to work with. So I'm going to go to the iris. I'm going to go to the pupil. See the pupil's highlighted blue right now. And then I'm going to grab my magic wand tool. I'm going to click right inside of that circle. And then I'm going to go back on my layers from pupil to pupil paint. And then I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. Actually, it's just a black circle in there, so it really doesn't matter if you have it hard or soft at this point, the opacity, the flow. You know what, I'm going to keep those all really high, and then I'm going to just go ahead and boom, there it is. So we've created that black hole in the center of my eye. I'm going to go ahead and deselect. That's holding down Control and then tapping the D button. I'm going to go ahead and go to the shape layer. I'm just going to make that shape layer disappear for a second. I'm going to go back to my pupil paint, and I'll go ahead and zoom in. And when I zoom in, you're going to see again, I have that really hard-edged, zigzag cut around of that shape. And if I look at my picture over here, it's nice and soft and sort of faded out. So just like I did on the outside edge of the iris, I'm going to do the same thing on the pupil. I'm going to go ahead and get my blur tool. The size over here at like 15, that looks good because that's pretty small. And hardness, I'm going to lower the hardness. I want it to be pretty soft, so I'm going to make it less than, around 10%. The strength of that, 50% is fine. And then I'm going to go around that edge. And as I click and hold and drag around that edge, you can see that it's sort of softened that edge. So you can see how hard it was when I cut it out and took away the shape. Now you can see as I go over this part with my blur tool, how it becomes nice, soft, and natural looking. I'm not going to go crazy with the blur tool, but that should give you a real nice start, a real nice effect over there to what the pupil looks like. All right, so now the next thing I want to do, and the other thing I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to keep it on the pupil paint layer, okay? I'm going to add a highlight, and we have a little highlight here. It's actually pretty hard edge if you look at it. It's a real hard edge kind of shape. Kind of fades out on the edge over here. You see some of the eyelashes kind of creep in, but I want to get this reflection because a lot of you are going to have like little white highlights in your pictures. So I'm going to show you how to get that. Now I'm going to do that on the pupil paint layer as well. I'm going to switch back to white. I'm going to go ahead and get my paintbrush out. This is entirely too big, so let's work with a smaller brush. And we're going to use a fairly hard brush. Actually, I'm going to keep the brush all the way at 100%. I'm going to go take another look down here, I feel like when I look at this white, I can kind of almost see through that reflection a little bit underneath. Like the reflection itself may not be 100% just stone white. So instead of having the opacity at 100, I'm going to go down a little bit. I'm going to go to like 75. And I'm going to bring the flow down a little bit too. So what I'm doing with this one over here, I'm working with a decent sized brush, let's say about 37 points. I'm going to use the hardness at 100%, so it really is sort of like a jagged edge brush. The opacity and the flow I'm going to keep pretty high. And then, the reflection itself, Control Z, zoom out a little bit. Reflection itself doesn't have to be exactly the same. I'm going to just go ahead and try to paint a little bit of approximately where I see it. Trying to make something that looks like a similar shape to that. And it's okay if it's not 100%. We'll zoom in, and you can see with that 100% brush what it looks like. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my little blur tool, and I'm going to get my blur tool, and I'm going to make it just a little bit larger. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of get in there a little bit and kind of blur out a little bit of those edges. Let's just say I look at mine and I see like a little bit more like jagged kind of edges and I want it to be a little crisper. Well, I can always then switch over to my eraser tool. And with the eraser tool, I'll keep the brush relatively hard. I'll keep the opacity and the flow really there. And what I can do is I can kind of come in. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go in and kind of mess with the edges. Smaller. Kind of emulate a little bit of that reflection that we see over there. Kind of shape it up a little bit. All right, I think I can live with that. And, if you really want to get into it over there, we can make our brush even a little bit smaller. And we'll go ahead and make a few of these little marks here, just like the little marks you see there. I'm going to make a few little bigger ones. And then I'll go down to a even smaller brush and kind of make a few. Not everybody's going to have something like that in their picture, but I like to throw in some advanced skills in there for those of you interested in getting good at digital painting. We've got our little, let's see, let me put a couple. I'll look at mine. I think I put too many little eyelashes, so I'm going to undo a few of those. And there we go. And then just come back and add a couple more. And I think the best thing about digital painting is if you make a mistake, you can make that mistake disappear like it never existed. So I'll take a look at now, and I think that I kind of like mine better now. And then we have my eyeball with the pupil, with the highlight, and the iris and the rest of it. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to save this as a PSD. Okay. I'm going to replace that one. I'm going to go ahead and take a screenshot of this. And I will submit this for the next assignment. I still have a couple more things I want to do with this. I'm going to show you guys how to do the skin and try to get the crease of the eyebrow in and eyelid and everything else like that and kind of finish this thing out. But at this point, we should have a pretty good looking eyeball. Take your time. We have time to do this, and just do your best. And if you have an issue with any of the work, just pause, rewind, and undo and try again. All right, I hope that's been helpful.